All right. I will call to order this meeting of the Wabash Township Board. It is 7:05 p.m. on April 16th, 2024. Secretary is not here, so I guess I'll do roll call. Member David Tate.
Present.
President Ian Pillars, present. Trustee
Present.
and Fire Chief.
Present.
Okay. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will start with the approval of the previous board minutes. I saw Angel sent those out just a little bit ago. I did have time to read them. I have no issues with them.
And then I also appended to your actual to the actual one there, the January 16th one that didn't get approved last time.
Okay. Take a 2-second look at that just to make sure.
And on the January 16th one, I made a couple of changes to what was written. I think in the original version, it was written as the annual report, the annual budget, but it should have been the annual financial report.
Okay.
So I changed that in a couple of places to make sure that it said annual financial report instead of budget. And then I added the link, which on the online version, will take you to the whole link.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. No, I remember writing parts of this myself. That's fine. Any objections? All right. Move to approve previous board minutes from both the January meeting and our February meeting.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
All right. Township update. Which one of you wants to go first?
All right, so I just wanted to go over and mention some of the quick financial notes on the trustee and board folder. And David, if you're having trouble with that, I can print it for you as well. We have I have made sure to put in the financial reports for all these months, as well as the township assistance year-to-date report.
Right.
So I'll start with the township assistance report first. From cases that got started in 2024. So there are some extra expenditures that were cases that started in 23, and so those show up in the system as being 23 cases. We approved we've so far done $18,214 in expenses. The total amount for the township assistance program is, I'm pulling it up, so I'm rotating pages. That would be, we provided so far through March 31st, $24,728. Hey, Chief. Hey, Chief, can you pick up my phone? It's Germany calling if you want. You can pick me. Yeah. In addition to that, we are in good shape for all of the different funds. For the general fund through the first quarter, we were at 13% of expenditures. Part of it is we haven't started doing the expenses for mowing and other pieces. So that's one thing we'll start picking up. We did hire the case manager, and they got started in the middle of March. And so they've now been with us for 4 weeks. And so that's working very well. They're getting trained. In addition to that, we have been going through and having conversations with niches and other places in preparation for the season. We'll actually have a potential update for you guys. They have expressed interest in taking over Sandridge Cemetery. So doing a transfer to niches, which would allow for further preservation. So we can talk a little bit more about that later, but I figured that I'd mention that just over the head. It's not something that's happening immediately by any means, so it won't be in an immediate piece, but I'll be having conversations with you guys individually to talk a little bit more about what that could look like and some of the ideas that I have. In addition to that, we have it's been fairly smooth sailing. It was a little bit slower towards the end of the quarter. There was just a decrease in need. In my other hat, I've seen an increase in need in April, which is not unheard of given that tax season is, most of the folks have already received their refunds, and so they're starting to run out of those extra funds, and they're starting to see additional need, especially with the end of moratoriums. That hasn't yet translated to the township side of stuff, but we anticipate that it'll pick up again in the coming weeks and months. Other than that, we don't really have too much to report. I know that Ed will be talking a little bit more, and we can have discussion later in the meeting about the proposed apparatus purchase.
Just run quick on the
Yes.
financial assistance, what percentage of those funds have
Been for what? Or that,
financial assistance?
how much has been used for the year? A quarter. So it's actually been about since this year we provided a budget for 100,000. We're at just under 25 through the first quarter. So it was very heavy the first couple of months, then it decreased, and so it's balanced out so far to be on pace for the year. So
And then a larger increase as weather gets worse, heating and so on, you think?
yeah, and so it usually picks up right around here, picks up through June, July, then it starts to decrease again,
Okay.
and then it increases right before the end of the year. So it's a little bit of an ebb and flow that it tends to have naturally. Anything else that you guys might have
Still with the
questions?
same companies doing the cemetery repairs? Mowing?
Yes, it's still going to be Calvin. We just got the first invoice for the season today.
We got everything with those trees that need to come down?
Yeah, we actually were talking with Nicias, and we figured that we do have money set aside. So even if they were looking to purchase, I think that it would be incumbent upon us to make sure that we take those down and that we leave the cemetery in a good place for the potential transfer. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else from you guys before I pass it off to Chief Ward?
How's the website, is it working?
So we haven't heard back. I've reached out and I've included Ian in at least one communication. I'm planning on sending a second one. Again, because I haven't seen any update.
So why are we paying this guy?
Well, we actually aren't currently. We've held the last invoice because we're waiting to make sure that it gets done
So if
before
the
we pay
service
it.
is this bad now, shouldn't we be looking at somebody else?
I think that we would come to that at some point in the near future if it doesn't get addressed. So
Well,
yes.
I mean,
What are our options?
this has been going on
Does
for way too
does
long.
the state force us to have some sort of restriction on who we're allowed to hire here?
There isn't really, no. We should hire someone that has the approval to work with. It would be good practice to hire someone that has approval to work with state agencies, but there's not really a restriction that's actually enforced for that. So.
Can we get a drop dead date that we can either get off the dime, do something, because this has been going on way too long.
Yeah.
I keep hearing, we haven't heard at
My-
some point in time.
My plan is through the middle of May, so a month from now, if we haven't got that fixed, then I think that we need to walk, if not, so. Yeah, that's a valid.
I don't even have an email. I mean, you said you were gonna email me in one
Oh.
email, but then I didn't get one, because I can read a Riot Act, like I've been in IT for a long time.
Okay. All right.
Like, I know there's no excuse for this, like, the thing that they need to do is not hard, and it should not take any amount of time. Like, somebody just isn't getting off their ass.
Well, especially if they're not responding.
Yeah,
That's,
That's the vendor that needs to be fired.
for me, that.
Yeah.
Look now, get rid of me.
no, that's good input, and I'll make sure to communicate that to the vendor too, that's the perspective of the board. Anything else?
No,
That's
I'm sure we'll have questions later, but we'll come to it when it gets to it.
perfect. All right, so Ed, if you want to come up.
Yeah, maybe that won't work, because you got all the holes filled. That's all right.
Give it to me and I can share it from mine.
Well, there's a couple different ones, so.
I guess the one that was edited today,
Huh?
the file that was.
These are
edited.
just pictures, is all this, that's coming up here.
Okay.
I would say pull up the station one folder. So I'm just gonna give kind of some updates on station one, station two, what's happening with some of the projects.
I'm going.
You're all right.
Or it would be nice to have like someone that runs the meetings like the cities have.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, yeah.
This meeting is being recorded.
Except that it was
This-
the.
First, the station one folder. So there's not really a ton, they've started, they got the walls all painted upstairs, they started yesterday putting up the cabinets. So this is just, once you get to the top of the stairs where you start to go into the kitchen lounge area. That's basically what the walls, this is just what the plan looked like for what it will end up being. Sorry, Dave.
Nope, that's fine. Just put it on the other corner. Yeah. There.
Anyway, that's what the plans kind of look like. It turned sideways, but there was another kick over there. That's more the lounge area. The wall here, right here is where the wall is separating the two parts. They're starting to build them out, so the refrigerators will go between in these holes here between these, so, well, it'd actually be that side of that fridge, and then they've got the. That's the hood for the ovens and all that, so they're starting to put everything to kind of together upstairs, which
Is
is,
this where the kitchen was previously? And they
Yes.
just knocked it all out?
yeah. There was
If you want me to go back to
that one. There was a pantry that was here, that pantry got blown out, so we could open that whole wall up, so.
Okay, nice. Yeah, that looks good.
There's an island that'll be going in. It'll be attached to this. This is a water plumbing grid. There'll be an island here. Then all the cabinets will kind of wrap around the side window there. But they started putting all that up today, but they've been sitting in boxes upstairs, but they had to fix some of the flooring where they pulled the pantry out. They put flooring down and it was showing where the other place was, so they pulled it all up to fix it, so. That's the extent of station one. We opened the station two folder.
Station 2 pad, is that the
Yep.
one?
And these aren't any particular order, you can kind of kick around. So they got all the concrete poured. These are actually about 3 weeks old pictures. It's all done right now. What they're waiting on is, go ahead. So they actually ended up coming back and they poured, so the reason they stopped here was this is county right away. There was back and forth with the county on how far into the right of way they could pour concrete, how much they couldn't. The county couldn't make up their mind, went back and forth, so finally they ended up pouring. To about here, all the way across, just past where these cone things are at. And the rest of it's asphalt. So, and you can just kind of kick through to show what the rest of the pictures look like. So we've been waiting right now. It's just basically this section here that needs asphalt in it, so, and they've not been able to get into it, to get those done. It's supposed to be done by Friday, Thursday or Friday, they're gonna have the asphalt poured, but. They're waiting for the asphalt plants to open, and then we were on a list and.
Yep.
Tried to get there, so
Which also delayed, by the way, the opening of 26 was.
That's exactly right. so. Apparently opening the road was more important than the fire station, but anyway. So, but it's all done right now. They're gonna come back, once they get the asphalt poured, they'll be back the following week to stripe it all, put the parking places in, all that stuff. We've got some parking spot or some handicap parking spots that we put up here in front of the building. And this is all a grade through here, so there's not there used to be a section of grass through here that kind of teed at the end. Kind of blew all that out. They were able to put a drain in because this drain did kind of run right off this end, so now it comes across and drops into a drainage tile that runs across there to kind of get rid of it, so there's no runoff onto the pads, so. That's really the bulk of it. That was 150 yards of concrete, so. And it was actually really, really good through the process. We realized that there was some, I might have mentioned it to you before. The pad that was there before was originally the foundation of the old station 2. They just built this station behind the old station. As they were ripping that concrete out, there were a lot of issues with that concrete. It was in bad shape. There was a lot of water underneath the pad because there was no aggregate put under the concrete, so there was no no gravel, there was no sand, no nothing put under the concrete. Some places the concrete was like 16 inches thick, some places it was like 4 inches thick. It was jacked up. So I guess that worked okay as long as you had a building sitting on top of it, but so it was a huge benefit for us to be able to get it up, and they were super surprised that we didn't have more problems than we actually had with all of it. The asphalt that they had poured at the approach was the same way. They had some asphalt about 24 inches thick, and they had some that was like 3 inches thick. So once they get their asphalt poured or laid, they'll come in, they'll grade everything on both sides of the drive. They have to do all that as part of the project. They'll have to grade it all out. They'll have to reseed it all. The county will make them do all that. So they will be doing that hopefully next week when they get the striping all done. So I think that's it on that. So before David gets in here, we won't start the truck part yet. I'll wait till he gets back in here. I'll just kind of give an update on some of the other stuff. So I mentioned in the last meeting that we had 6 of our volunteers in EMT class. They've all completed EMT class. They've all taken their practical exams. They're sporadically finishing up their written examinations just based on when they could find testing holes to get into them to do them. So they completed EMT class and immediately went into Fire 1 and 2, which is another several month program for them to get their fire certifications completed. So we've got 5 right now, 5 in Fire 1 and 2, which is a benefit for us. These are folks that have been with us for a little bit. We also, through this process, started a new probie class, a new recruit class that has 6 people in it, which is kind of it's about a perfect recruit class size for us to be able to manage those new folks that really don't have any idea what we're doing. So those 6 people started last Wednesday. Only one of them have got experience, firefighter EMT experience, and he's actually a fireman up in Battleground. So but beyond that new class of folks will be up and moving pretty quick too. We're kind of trying to move them through the process a little faster. So that's why having a smaller class is just a little more conducive to that. But run volume, we hit run 402 yesterday. And that's putting us up over last year, about 60 runs from where we were last year. 60 runs. But again, we talk about it all the time. It's just one of those things that can fluctuate so much, in our months apart before, between meetings, we can fluctuate 30 to 40 runs pretty easy. So, depends on the weather, depends on all kinds of things. But generally the summertime is our, I don't want to say less runs, but our busy time is generally winter time while students are here. While the students are out in the middle of the summer, we don't normally blast that many runs altogether. But the last couple of years have been so inconsistent that it's hard to really give a trend. It's just been all over the place. So now if you want to pull up that in that folder, the Spartan folder.
Are you guys okay? Do you have any questions before we jump onto that would be an item, the new business stuff?
Yeah, before that, we have public comment and. Oh, sorry. Would you like to comment on anything? Is there anything you want to talk about?
There is, but it's not related to anything you're discussing now, so. Can we circle back on me? Sure.
We can come back after after.
Let's just give the rest of the public. Okay, I think there's.
All right, so proposed apparatus.
You want me to pull up?
Yeah.
That's second.
Yeah.
Start.
Pull it up on here. Separately so I can go through.
Let me increase it a little bit more so that it's easier to read for you guys.
And there we go.
I've got a couple handouts to give you guys. That'll help make sense of some of it.
Sure.
So the truck that we're looking at, we've been looking for the truck that we'd initially planned to start speccing out and ordering. The truck would end up being in excess of $700,000. After we sold 606, we started kind of trying to get an idea of what we wanted to do. I was looking more at the used market. The used market's been pretty awesome as of late. Sometimes you run through a time where all you can find are trucks that are 20 to 30 years old. And we were able to find a truck that meets all of the specs that we wanted, and even some of the things we thought was going to be going away that we wouldn't be able to afford to put in a truck. This 2018 Spartan, the truck is in immaculate shape. It's only got 8,600 miles on it. The truck it's out in Sea Isle, New Jersey is where the truck was spec'd at, where the truck got taken delivery of. So overall, the truck meets everything that we wanted in a truck. Everything that we were hoping to spec in it. You know, I'm guessing we'll end up coming in around 375 or so on the truck is my guess. So I, of course, had a bunch of questions. I put some of those in this document, but I don't think that's the one I copied for you guys. So some of the questions that I had for them was what their original purchase price was of the truck. The original purchase price, oh, it is that. So 700, right at 700,000. This truck's all-wheel drive, which is one of the things that we had initially wanted in a truck, but the cost, excuse me, that was pretty cost prohibitive for us as we started through that process. That would have pushed our truck well over 800,000. And this truck has got that in it. Why are they selling the truck? I was curious about that. It's 2018. The truck doesn't run very much. So basically, the truck was purchased by a past chief. On his way out, he really liked the idea of this truck. This was not the truck the department thought they were getting. They thought they were getting a Quint. All of these things. He really liked the idea of this truck. They placed an order for the truck. This is what they took delivery of. It does not meet their needs. Within 6 months of him taking delivery of the truck, he retired out and has since passed. So this truck just sat because it didn't meet the needs of what they needed. So they've since replaced this truck with a Quint, and this truck sits as the backup truck. They do their pump test on it. They still, run the truck, but it's not used every day, which is a huge benefit.
It's not dissimilar to the situation with 605, which was sold about 2 years ago. Where
Absolutely.
It was purchased and it didn't meet the needs of the department, and so we sold it.
That's exactly right. Leadership? It was,
So prior to
Prior.
prior
Yeah.
to any of it.
But again, that's worst case scenario for them, best case scenario for us, I think, you know, the truck meets our needs. This truck it has got a bunch of things that are somewhat unconventional. That's that all-wheel drive part to start with. That's not something that's a very common thing in the job. But for what we're wanting the truck for, a more hilly environment, our areas towards the south end of our township. It was something that we really had an interest in. So when we thought the four-wheel drive was gonna be cost prohibitive, there's an option that you can put on the truck that's just a locking rear differential. So it locks your differentials together to where you don't have four-wheel drive, but it gives you the same sort of some of the same capability. So finding that wasn't even listed on the original listing of the truck, but it was all-wheel drive. They didn't realize that until I started asking more questions and had them reach out to the department. The company that was brokering the truck, that they said, oh, we forgot to add that in the post. So I think if they'd have known that, they would have increased the cost of it when they were trying to sell it, but in the original truck post, it said it was available late 24. Basically they said that because they've got this, they got another truck that they're ordering, and they were afraid that if they made the truck available for sale immediately and the truck went away quickly, they would cause a bit of an uproar with their people in the community that you're getting rid of a truck. And even though they don't use this truck, they just didn't want to create that stuff.
So there's like someone's
Uh-huh.
shut.
But it makes sense, right? But he did say, the salesman I talked to, they have, since we started this process, Friendly Mountain is the company that is brokering the truck, but they've actually gone from brokering it to they just bought the truck from Sea Isle. So they own the truck now, and that's who we will get the truck from, is Friendly Mountain. So
Same price?
same price, yeah. And we're in the process of trying to get that all squared away, but I've kind of wiped some of that off. I told them what we were shooting at price wise. We were wanting to stay 350 to 375. I said 350, but what were you gonna say?
Enough, what do you want me to jump in and talk a little bit about the process or what that would look like, or?
Yes, in just 1 second. So some things that were important for us. So every year we got to do pump testing. Every year we do a full inspection on the trucks. So part of this purchase price includes that a pump test within 30 days of us taking the truck before we take the truck. So we know it's less than 30 days old. They will go through the entire truck and do a complete inspection, I think he called it like a 200-point inspection. You can call it whatever you want, but they go clear through the entire truck. So that's all super, super important. There is something different about this truck. We scroll, go the other way.
Up.
Yeah, scroll up. So this truck's called a boomer. No offense to the boomer in the room, but scroll a little more to see the picture. So this truck has got a 28-foot boom on the top of it.
Yes.
It's an elevated waterway, so it's 28 feet. The truck's 11 feet tall. So giving us 39 feet of rise on that elevated waterway is an advantage for us, that we can use that in areas where we can't get our quint into.
Yeah.
We still have elevated waterway, but there's something else that's kind of special about it. Is it's got something else that we would order in a truck would be instead of steam lights, command lights. It's a light tower that raises up on the top of the truck. That is built into this boom. Also built into that boom is hydraulic lines for our tools. So if we've got our hydraulic tools and we're working on an extrication feed, we can swing this boom to wherever we want, hook the hoses into that boom, and that gives us connectivity back to the truck. Still a huge advantage. And it's a 1,000-pound crane. It's rated for everyday use at 1,000 pounds. It's rated max use at a ton. So if we need to use that for anything else, we've got the ability to use that as a boom arm as well. So
It's almost like a mini rescue vehicle.
it is. It absolutely is. Compartment space wise, we've got the compartment space for all the things that came off of our other truck. This truck is still shorter than our old truck. Our old truck was 36 feet, just 33. This is 33 feet. And believe it or not, 3 feet will make all the difference in the world in getting that truck here. The plan right now is to house that truck up here. It is intended for the south end of our area, but all of our staff is here. So instead of them driving to Station 2 and getting a truck, they will grab that truck here and go south for the call. We'll shovel some trucks around and make it work, but we have space for it to be housed up here as well. So that's likely what will happen. is it'll be housed up here, so. Do you wanna talk about the other parts?
Sure, so on just since we were talking about what this looks like, I know I spoke briefly with Ian about it. So for going through in the purchase of an apparatus, what we are intending or what we would propose would be that we cover the first year of the debt or a portion of the cost of the apparatus out of the fires that we have accumulated in Cume Fire Funds from the sale of our 605 apparatus, of our 606 apparatus. But we are in a process right now where we are rolling off our debt. So our debt is about to roll off at the end of 2024. So the debt for 602, and then 602 is rolling off. And then we don't currently have a debt in place. What we don't want to do is end up with our debt fund being dormant, because then we have to go through a very difficult process to get it reactivated. What makes most sense for us would be and the recommendation would be to pay the first year out of, we can set a 4-year debt, but we make the first payment out of the Cume Fire Fund, and then the future payments are going to be loaded on the debt service fund. To be able to do this, we have to go through like a public hearing process, and then we'll have to go through and get a loan, obviously. And so our current loan is with Centrier. I anticipate that we wouldn't really have an issue going through and seeking a loan again through Centrier. What it would allow us to do also, it would keep our debt at about the same amount, because again, we're talking about $375,000. So when you take into account interest rate, whatnot, you would anticipate that you'll be paying about $100,000 a year, a little bit less, but around that ballpark of $100,000. Right now, our current debt sits at $112,000. So the taxpayer won't notice a difference in the rate for the debt service fund. And so it actually, the second part, and I know that Ed will talk a little bit more about this later. The second part about that's very beneficial about this is that with the current lead time in the apparatus, the apparatuses, we would actually be able to load this debt, have about a 3-year debt window going out through 2027. 2027, and that will give us enough time to be able to work on the speccing of the next apparatus to be able to roll through the cycle.
Because this is not
2020.
fill a piece of equipment. I mean, you're filling that gap. we don't
That's
have.
exactly right.
Exactly.
We've sold 2 trucks. This is replacing those 2 trucks into one. Yeah.
So how much is that money you're gonna take out of the,
Out of the existing Cume Fire Fund, I anticipate taking about 100. So obviously, like, this isn't the finalized proposal, but it would roughly be using $100,000 out of Cume Fire. And then as we load the rest of the debt onto the debt service fund, we would be able to take the remaining over the course of a couple of payments, but over a 3-year appropriation process to be able to do that. And so that just allows us to continue using the fund and have a proper mechanism and be able to move on to the debt service when we are done with this apparatus, when the next one is up for replacement.
what would that draw the Cume fund down to?
Our current, I apologize, let me pull it up. I don't have it right in front of me, but if you'll give me a second.
Quick question.
Yeah.
What is the lifespan of
Apparatus.
trucks or an apparatus?
It varies based on the type of apparatus. On an engine, life expectancy right now. Sorry, I don't want to pull that off again. Life expectancy is about 18 years is what the manufacturers say. We've stretched like 602 that we just sold. It was a 21-year-old truck when we got rid of it. Again, the truck would meet the needs for somebody that doesn't run as much as we run. So that was how we were able to sell it and make $90,000 in the truck. In some of the backstory for this, the process of the debt and all of those things, the way the township has been set for many, many years is every 5 years you're on a rotation. So every 5 years you start to replace that next oldest truck. You start through that process. At the end of this year is when that 5 years would be up. There's not a chance of us being able to have a truck spec'd, a new built truck spec'd, bought, delivered, all those things. The lead time right now is 2.5 to 3 years on a truck. If we spec it today and get that order placed, it's 2.5 to 3 years before that truck shows up here. That's where this process gives us that time. Dropping that debt off, I I hate the sound of it, but dropping that debt off is a huge pain in the rear end to make that process start again. So townships just don't drop it. Townships don't drop that debt service. That's why that every 5-year rotation has happened.
So there's a couple of things there, just a note, right, like our debt, what it also allows is for cash flow to be a little bit more on hand. Because even if we were to appropriate, suddenly say next year, we decided we didn't want to take any debt, right? Until we appropriate an additional $400,000, then the taxpayer is gonna see a big difference there. If we didn't do that and we just took it out of existing stuff, you know, then you start to see a drop off in funding, and that's gonna be really critical with other stuff that we're a growing community. We wanna make sure that we have a good enough healthy balance. For your question, David, we began the year with $956,000 in cumulative fire funds minus, I would remind you that we appropriated just under $200,000 we encumbered just under $200,000. So a good estimate would be to say that our practical beginning of the year balance was 750. So this would drop it to 650. So it's still in a healthy place to be able to invest and do capital expenses. I don't want to get to a place where we don't have that. And part, you never know what's going to happen, right? Like an apparatus could, fully die tomorrow and we're not able to. We want to be able to have money on hand to be able to work towards replacement. So
That's
it's
good.
good.
I was looking for something that.
Yeah,
Makes me feel better about that.
yeah, of course.
Thank you.
So then, with the purchase of this truck, what's your next oldest, what's the oldest piece of apparatus?
The oldest
that you
piece of
have
apparatus
that
out-
Be replaced.
Outside of this is our tanker, is the next truck that is practically in line for that. And I say practically because our tanker's in pretty good shape. It's in very good shape. That was another truck that was purchased that doesn't really meet the needs of what we need. It should have been built differently for what we do. So it'll likely be another truck, but that will be another truck that we hold on to. We don't, if we replace that truck, that'll end up being another tanker that we have. So we would hold on to that truck. As well with this truck, when we start through this engine spec process, we're to a point now to where we're growing enough that like in our ISO rating, when we went through that whole process, us not having a reserve engine here hurt us through that ISO process. So, Wabash Township has always been a fire department that takes immaculate care of their equipment. And we'll continue that way. We have to, if the life expectancy of a truck is 18 years, I believe, and I don't want the guys to throw anything at me, but I believe we can get 20 to 25 out of most of our apparatus, taking care of it the way it is. The problem with that is that it's just like the cars you purchase on the street. The more electronics they're putting into those trucks, the shorter those lifespans become. And that's a very, very difficult thing for us to mitigate. I mean, Blake's sitting back here. Blake's kind of one of our mechanics that works on stuff. The hard part is being able to get to some of those things and being able to have the tools to do it and the diagnostic equipment. So, that cost of ownership starts to break over. I think around 18 years is where your cost of ownership is probably hitting. And that's the case even with our older truck. Because we were getting to a place with it to where some of the things that we were needing for the truck, it was really, really hard to get our hands on the stuff because the truck was so old. I mean, it was a Freightliner chassis as well. And even though it was a commercial chassis, it was still hard to get our hands on some of the equipment for it. So,
And last, but just a quick note, not anything that we are going to see in the immediate future, but just to keep in mind, long-term planning at some point, and I don't anticipate, I'm 100% certain it won't be in this term. But at some point, the township will probably have to plan to build another station and staff another station, but also like have equipment for another station.
exactly.
So, obviously our population's continuing to grow. There's a whole lot of pieces, but just be thinking about that.
Yeah.
Even as we have equipment, if at some point we don't necessarily need to replace the next one up because we feel like we can get 5 years, we do want to continue building up our equipment as we continue to grow as a community. So obviously, that's not a decision that is today. This one's an easy understandable piece of we're replacing apparatuses that we have since sold that were, past the end of their life expectancy. But just as a note, as we think about what the future planning looks like for the township. Do you need me to present anything else?
No, I don't think so. I've got a whole folder of like 30 pictures if you guys want to look through pictures. If you-
Ask how thorough was the inspection on this? And I'm assuming you got a lot of, because like if it was somebody's baby and then that got retired immediately after, like I can see it not getting taken care of.
So Brindley Mountain actually offers something that is awesome. They've got the ability to do if we purchase the truck, we can do an on-site take delivery. We go to their place, they're in Alabama. We go to their place, we take delivery of the truck. They have since lowboyed this to Alabama from New Jersey, so it didn't get driven. They lowboyed it there. We can go there and we can take delivery of the truck. We've got a day to go through the whole thing. We can test it, drive it, pump it, whatever we want to do. Or during COVID, as much as things sucked during COVID, something decent came out of it, and they've actually got a different delivery option. And it is, they call it sight unseen delivery, which just the sound of it spooked me a little bit. They will bring the truck here. We have the truck for 7 days. We can pump it, drive it, do all the things we want to do with it. At the end of that 7 days, if we decide, hey, there's something wrong with this truck that we don't want, they will come pick the truck up, take it away, and it's the whole contract is null and void. The thing that I like about this is we have the ability to take this truck to our mechanic down at Dow's. We've got the ability to, that's exactly right. We've got the ability to have our mechanic look at it. We've got the ability to have the folks that do our pump testing, all those things, have their hands on this truck and let us know.
See if it's gonna fit your needs.
That's right. And I want my guys to get it out and pump the hell out of the truck and make sure that it's going to do the things that it needs to do. Cause they'll be the ones to tell me, hey, this isn't doing what we needed to do, right? Having a week to do that
At no cost.
is at no cost to us, doesn't cost us anything to take delivery that way. And they actually prefer to do that. So that was something for me. As much as I would love, while the truck was in New Jersey, as much as I would love to go to New Jersey and hang out for a day or two, not so much. As much as that'd be a trip, I would really prefer to have it for a week and be able to put it through all the paces we need to put it through. So, that's my suggestion. So from that point forward, I kind of wiped it on Hill to kind of take care of the rest of the financial part of the back end of it. We want the truck. We feel like it more than meets the needs of what we're shooting for, and it meets the needs for things, anticipation down the road for things, which is, again, I was hesitant with a 6-year-old truck, but when that 6-year-old truck has less than 9,000 miles on it.
My follow-up question was gonna be like, yeah, I'm judging this mileage as if it's a car, but like it's not a car, and I don't have a good idea of how much a fire engine actually gets driven. So like how little is 9,000 miles?
It's
Practically.
Our 2020 pickup that we use for our medical runs right now just turned over 25,000 miles.
Okay.
So, and that's a 2020 truck.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah,
and we use it
okay.
for our medical runs. So there's 2 things you pay attention to when you're buying a used police car, used fire truck, used ambulance. You look at your mileage and you look at your idle hours, the hours the truck's been idling. I was told, and they weren't, I didn't put it on here because couldn't give me a definite. The chief had told him that it had less than 300 hours of idle time on it, which that's huge. I mean, for a truck that's 6 years old, 300 hours isn't shit. I mean, it really isn't anything. So, but it gives me the idea that they've still got it out. They've exercised it. It hasn't been sitting in the back of the room and, the back of the bay, and it's got its seals drying out and all that stuff, which is, again, is something we will find out pretty quickly when the truck gets here. We will know the shape of that pump. We'll know the shape of the truck. So.
And tied to that, just again, to bring it back to what the process would look like for the board. What we wrote based off of the timeline, at this point, based off of interest from us, and what the process would look like, we were able to essentially keep a hold on the truck. But they need to go through the process fairly quick. So what we had communicated to the vendor was that we would be able to have a meeting in 3 weeks from now. So I forget exactly what 3 weeks from now is, but 3 weeks from now. And so it would be enough time to be able to do a public notice, because we're required to have a 10-day notice to the public. That would be posted in the Journal of Career Legal Ad section. And so we'll be able to do that and be working on the back end to provide that for you guys to be able to have a meeting on the 7th of March.
So basically what you're
Okay.
saying is the truck should be here for the 7th, so the public can see it.
Yeah, and I forget if I just said 7 or 14. We wouldn't be able to see the truck here that day, but we would be able to have
That's
a,
what we need to sign off on.
That's absolutely.
The way that we're gonna handle that.
and so the debt and the ability to purchase it.
Yep.
And,
Okay.
so that's it on my part. Is there anything else that you?
I don't think so. Do you guys have any questions?
Good job.
No, ask them all.
Awesome. I think that's all I've got.
Okay.
Mr. President.
All right. Next on the agenda is resolution 2024-9, authorizing the use of CL Coonrod and Company for their financial consulting services. Angel, I mean, I've read all this. If you want to give like a brief synopsis on,
Brief.
Yes, so I included, funny David, I included on your guys' packet as well, the letter of engagement, the latest draft of the potential letter of engagement. So really what I know that I've discussed it and we discussed it a little bit as well during my presentation last meeting. That there's a couple of things that the township really wants to be able to be looking at for a long time. One, we want to be able to continue planning for population growth. And that means planning for medium term, revenues, budgets, etc. We're also looking to do a couple of more complex levy appeals, in particular when it comes to the general like the levy that affects the township assistance in the general fund, because that would allow us to be able to plan for the future. I also discussed during our last meeting that we are interested in looking at a potential expansion of facilities, so building a new building that will be able to house the township trustee's office, be able to have a space for community agencies and local government agencies to be able to have like a hot desk situation, stuff to be defined, but look, the potential for a new office space that meets the needs for the township going forward.
and so these guys are going to be able to give us a long-term
Yes.
estimate of where our revenues are going to be, and we
Exactly.
can start planning out something larger like that.
Yeah, and what opportunities we have to look at revenues beyond what we've currently, planned for or know that we're gonna be able to receive. The last piece that I added on here related to this apparatus search, if I'm able to have your guys' signature on this, we'll be able to use them to make sure that we do the stuff right through the debt service fund. I've been able to get by the last 2 years without ever touching a financial consultant. But that's not standard practice, generally speaking, because you get to a certain point where it's above your level of expertise, right?
Yeah.
And so you need to be able to hire someone that has that level of experience to be able to do those pieces. So we want to make sure that we do all of the reports and all of the stuff we have to submit correctly, and they would be able to help us. And so they've estimated that the services that we've asked for would cost no more than $8,000. And so I included on here not to exceed 8,000 if we receive approval.
That includes helping us with the truck now, as well as.
Yes, correct. And obviously, if at a certain point we felt that we needed to go above the 8,000, then I would have to go back to you guys to ask for permission.
Okay.
They included other pieces in here that we probably wouldn't use, like budget reviews and whatnot.
There was a lot in there, yeah.
I want to be, we have a good system, and that's one of the things that is within my realm of feasibility, so. There are some things that are boilerplate language that we probably would use.
But to me, it's an advantage to still have that.
The ability to.
used If we need
it,
If we need them for those other services, having them already.
Yeah.
Makes a big difference in getting those.
So that's resolution 2024-9.
Before we go, can I ask that, you change to help us to make that the township, because that sounds a little odd.
Where was it? Sorry?
Digest resolution authorizing use of financial consultant to help us, it should be the township, not us.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. I should have put the township in the agenda.
I just
But
make sure the wording is.
I think it's just in the agenda.
It's just in
That's
the
not
agenda.
present on the actual
Yeah,
resolution.
Should be correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Okay. All right, I will call for a vote on resolution 2024-9.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, resolution 2024-10, establishing policy on declaring capital assets as surplus. So this would allow Angel to declare as surplus anything worth $10,000 or less. We're going to need an addendum on this to make or less
Yes.
a part of the actual resolution,
Okay.
or he will be very hobbled.
Yeah. I'll still have to ask for everything unless it's exactly $24,000. Good catch, by the way. That's fairly, I think it was, I know that I've mentioned it last time. The idea is, we have a lot of equipment that's normal in the fire department that you guys might not need to see necessarily that we were declaring it surplus. We have to go through a process of declaring it surplus before we trash it, sell it,
Yeah.
give it away, etc. And so we figured, in talking among us, we figured that a good balance between practicality and accountability would be that for items of less than that value, that we're able to deem it surplus, but we still have to communicate it to you.
Yep.
And that, any items above that amount, then we would still have to come to you. For that, and then last included on there, the sections that of relevant code are just code that specifies how you're able to dispose of it. So like you're able to donate it to a volunteer fire department in the county or other volunteer fire departments, but the ones in the county have priority. So that's just how we dispose of it after
Sure.
it's been declared surplus. So, so that's all this resolution would do.
And we need it, because I gotta get rid of a whole bunch of old junk that we
Yeah.
can't use.
I've been up there. It's there's a lot. There's a lot up there. Yeah, we don't need you to have to come to us for every one of those little
I
things.
appreciate that.
And so-
Yeah,
And just to make sure that the correction there would be valued at $10,000 or less, is that what you
Yes.
wanted to add on there?
yes. So,
Is there currently a restriction on, like, if you have equipment that's old, you have restrictions on how it can be disposed? I guess it would depend on what it is, but
If it was bought by municipal dollars, you have to follow
Yeah.
the instructions, so you have to. If you're going to donate it, you have to donate it to a fire department or whatnot. If you're gonna sell it, you have to sell it to either the highest bidder or a municipality in the community, and then you can do it at a kind of. At a negotiated cost that wouldn't be necessarily a bidding.
so is this stuff that has any value?
Some of it does, not all of it.
Some of it has,
I know at one point you had radios, that was like.
yeah,
last
those,
year.
the radios we have are things that we will do later if we're able to get. We're holding on to all the radio stuff, just for parts right now, but sure, the rest of the stuff is old nozzles that are broken and outdated. We've got old old hydraulic hose that we can't use. We got just a bunch of miscellaneous sort of things like that. I applaud the hoarders that came before me, right? Because some of the stuff we've been able to use, we've been able to find ways of making some of the stuff work where we didn't have to go purchase new things. But I think we pilfered the old stuff that we've got as much as we can possibly pilfer it, so. And that, I mean, originally our plan was just to start, we got a lot of stuff that's just junk that we need to throw in the trash, but. It was more important to me that we hold on to it to make sure we have this process hammered out than, especially given all the junk that's taken place. I just didn't want anything to end up in the trash can that somebody got pissed about later. So I just want to make sure we did it right once.
all right, well, with that change to the language, I will move to vote on resolution 2024-10.
All those in favor of voting for resolution 2024-10, resolution establishing policy on declaring capital assets as surplus. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries.
All right. Sir, you wanted me to circle back. This is it. You have been circled back to.
Great to be here, that's all I've got. I had a question, but it ended up being absolutely wrong.
Okay. All right,
I'm glad you let me serve. Thank you.
no problem. So next meeting in 3 weeks, May 7th. And then we will have a public hearing about the purchase of the apparatus in more detail. And then our next regular meeting will be June 18th. Does anybody have any announcements before we close up for the day?
You are aware that May 7th is election day, that's the primary.
Ooh,
Yes.
but it's
It's
we're
at 7. We're
yeah,
after
it's
hours.
after polls close. Yeah, I think we're
I
okay.
just wanted to make that.
Just wear your I voted today sticker.
Yeah, if anybody isn't, then they can be shamed.
I plan on voting before then. I'll probably have the counting votes tomorrow.
All right, look at you.
Well, if they had voting here this time, I would have voted here, but they don't.
All right, it is 8 p.m. on the 16th of April. I move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Second shortest meeting ever.